Um,
Right.
Thank you very much, Maddie.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, so our topic today that I'm going to speak to is about workers' compensation. The title of this particular presentation is Soup to Nuts: Understand and Effectively Manage Your Workers' Comp. My name is Nick DiCarlo. I am Vice President and Sales Director for Ameritrust, and we work directly with the association, the IGO Association, have for a number of years as the endorsed provider of workers' compensation, along with the IGO Insurance Agency. We're a proud supporter of the association and look forward to bringing you this topic today. The learning objectives that I want to accomplish during this particular presentation are first to recognize the impact that workplace accidents can have on a business's work comp insurance. Secondly, we want to understand the fundamental safe housekeeping practices in a workplace environment. Third, we want to understand what the experience mod is, if you don't know, and how that impacts your bottom line. We want to learn how to create and implement a workplace violence prevention program. We want to make sure you know how to evaluate the significance of and implement a formal return to work program. And then also want to make sure you know how to create and implement a workplace safety audit process. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about workers' compensation and what goes in, the costs that go into a work comp claim. There are two types of costs that go into a work comp claim. As you see there are direct costs and indirect costs. The direct costs are what most people think of when they think of what goes into a work comp claim. That's your medical bills, because your employee gets injured on the job. They're gonna, and if you're filing a claim, that means they're requiring medical attention, and they're possibly going to be out of work. So we're talking about medical costs, physician, ER, perhaps pharmacy costs, physical therapy if it's more of a long-term type injury. And then the indemnity is that lost time. So the wages that they that they're getting paid while they can't come in to work and earn an actual paycheck. So that's that lost time pay, disability benefits, dependent benefits, death benefits if, God forbid, they were killed on the job, legal expenses, investigations. So indirect costs are all the things, the other ways that your company, your business is financially impacted by a particular work comp claim. So that employee is out, you're immediately going to suffer a loss of productivity. You're also going to potentially be shorthanded, which is going to impact your ability to repair cars on a timely basis and just provide this level of service that you intend to provide to your customers. Depending on what type of claim it is, if it was a pretty bad one and it's publicized, there could be a negative customer relations type of situation, negative publicity. If you have to hire somebody to replace that employee, then obviously there's recruiting, hiring, and training costs and time that go into that. So without reading through all of those bullets, there are so many indirect costs that go into a work comp claim to take into consideration. When we talk about safety practices in an auto repair facility or collision repair facility, there's a number of things to take into consideration. The two that I want to focus on as it relates to workers' compensation that we see the most claims of, and those would be slips, trips, and falls, and general lifting practices. If you've had work comp claims, chances are very good that you're looking at this and these are things that you've seen be the cause of claims in your shop. The last one on there, employee training, is also very, very important. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. As it relates to general lifting practices, these claims are not only common, but they tend to be one of the most severe types of claims as well, because generally it's going to involve a back injury more often than not. And back injuries can take a long time to recover from. They can put somebody out of work for a period of time. They can oftentimes require very costly and high risk surgery as well. So it's very important that your employees are taught and trained proper lifting techniques. So you'll see here in this diagram a picture of correct lifting technique. And so, but those first bullet points up at the top are going to tell you what improper lifting technique kind of looks like. It's all things that most people know, but I think we all, when we're lifting something up, at times think you just think that it's not gonna, if you do it just this once, it's not gonna hurt you. Well, all it takes is one time for a big injury. So bending from the waist to pick up objects, of course, that's always a no-no, really regardless of the weight of the object, but especially if it's a heavier object. Lifting boxes above the chest and head, there's all sorts of bad things that can come from doing that, whether it's shoulder injuries, dropping it on your head, anything, a number of things. Twisting the body to carry or lift a heavy box or object, that can create a back issue as well. Not always using two hands. Again, that's something that we see from time to time. And then obstructing your vision with an object you're carrying. So these are all things that I think most people would agree that they are common sense, but they just need to be constantly reinforced in the training. And it's not just training when somebody comes on as a new employee, but it's constant reinforcement, constant retraining, reminders, etc. So you want to teach them to, when they're lifting, to get a good grip, get good footing, keep the object close, lift it smoothly, avoid twisting, and of course have a clear vision to the path that they're walking, so they're not tripping over something or slipping on some type of substance. Next thing I wanted to talk about is workplace violence. And this is something that I think a lot of business owners don't necessarily think about when it comes to workers' compensation, but it is something that we see becoming, or it's been an issue for a while, and it's going to continue to be an issue to some degree. There's a number of different types of workplace violence that could occur in your business. There's criminal workplace violence, whether that could be somebody coming into the shop with the intention of doing harm to somebody. There's customer workplace violence. So if you have a customer that's unhappy about the work that you did or the response that you gave to a request that they had or anything like that, and next thing you know, they begin to get physical with an employee, that could cause a work comp claim. Coworker workplace violence, this is probably the most common of all these, to employees that are not getting along or all of a sudden have a disagreement and things get physical and injuries occur as a result of that. And then domestic violence, unfortunately, this is another one that we see, and that could be anything from really most common would be a significant other of an employee showing up at the workplace and a physical altercation breaks out. So these are all things that need to be thought of and addressed when it comes to workers' compensation and claim prevention. So how do you prevent these things from happening? Well, there's no way to totally prevent them, but there are ways to, of course, hopefully mitigate them. And that is environmental design and setup. So you want to make sure that entry points for the business are set up so that somebody can't just enter the building and have direct access to an employee. They have to go past somebody that is going to be able to stop them from getting to where they're trying to go, hopefully, before they can do anything. Be aware of potentially violent situations. I think this primarily relates to the coworker workplace violence. So if you have two employees that aren't getting along and it's kind of a toxic situation, you want at the very least try to keep them separate in their work environment so they're not having to really interact with each other so much. If not, put them on separate shifts or separate days altogether if that's possible. But we obviously understand that in an auto repair facility can't always be possible. So, but just being aware of those situations can help prevent something big from happening there. And then creating a plan, communicating, and training is always going to be very important. And in the event that something does happen or something begins to happen, employees knowing how to handle it, who to contact, how to prevent this person from getting back into the shop, or how to de-escalate a situation. Those things should all be included in your workplace violence plan. So we highly recommend a workplace safety audit and checklist for your shop. There's a number of things that are going to go into this. 4 areas are general safety, electrical safety, fire protection, and ergonomics. For general safety, the floors. So we talked about slip and falls. We want to make sure that the floors are clear of all obstacles and debris. So there's no hazards of employees falling while walking on the floors. Ensuring stairways are in good condition. So you don't want broken stairs or handrails that are falling off the wall, or slippery stairs or anything like that. Lighting is very important in terms of employees being able to see hazards that lie ahead. You want to make sure you're checking for warning signs near those hazards, that employees are checking for warning signs. And then also emergency evacuation plans. Those need to be in place, be current, and employees need to be aware of how to act in those situations. Emergency phone numbers. So in the event that there is a situation where somebody needs to be contacted in an emergency, those numbers need to be visible to everybody near all of the phones. For electrical safety, the electrical panels need sufficient clearance. Need to make sure that electrical cords and plugs are all kept out of the way of people's walking paths and working areas, as that can be a huge hazard if they're not. And we've all seen businesses where extension cords are running all through the across the floor and in the line of people's walking paths, and that needs to be avoided and constantly evaluated. In terms of fire, we want to make sure that all the exit signs are present and properly lit. So those should be checked regularly, as should the fire alarms. And then all fire extinguishers need to be currently filled excuse me, checked regularly and easily accessible. Ergonomics is, if you have somebody that's sitting at a desk for the majority of their day, you want to make sure that you're doing what you can to make sure that they're not going to suffer any ill effects from sitting stationary at that desk. So you want to make sure that all the employees have fully adjustable chairs. Footrests should be available if required, and then monitors, computer monitors should be adjusted to the appropriate height to avoid any unnecessary neck strain. I want to talk a little bit now about the experience modification factor. Excuse me. So I'm sure most of you know what your experience mod is, or at least heard about it. But for those that may be less familiar, first I want to talk about who calculates the experience mod. And for most states, it's NCCI, the National Council on Compensation Insurance. And that's who does it in North Carolina. Some other states may have their own exclusive state fund, and some may operate in an independent work comp bureau. But NCCI is the predominant overseer of the experience mod for workers' compensation. And how is this experience mod calculated? Well, your company's losses are compared to the expected losses by industry type. So you take your shop and what your losses look like over a period of time compared to other companies in your industry of similar size. They take into consideration the company size, unexpectedly large losses. So you're going to be penalized for a large loss, but not as much as you would be for a lot of small losses. And that goes into frequency versus severity. So both are going to provide have a negative impact on your experience mod. However, frequency is going to have more of an impact, because that would indicate that there's something going on that is causing you to consistently have claims, even if they're not the exact same types of claims. They say that frequency breeds severity. The more claims you have, even if they're small, the more likely you are to have a big one. And we see this time and again. So the mod is going to reflect that as well. So what is the experience mod rating period? So the mod is based off of a 3-year period that is a rolling 3-year period and excludes the most recent year. So for instance, if your upcoming work comp effective date is January 1st of 2022, the 2021 calendar year would not be factored into your 2022 mod. It would be the 2020 year, the 2019 year, and the 2018 year. And so every year, 1 year is going to be added and 1 year is going to fall off. So if you find yourself in a situation where your mod has gotten high, the biggest key is going to be to get those bad years off of there and replace them with good years. So how can you control your experience mod? Well, first of all, hiring. It's so important. Drug screens, background checks. You want to avoid, if possible, hiring people that have a history of filing workers' compensation claims. Training, of course, very important, as we've talked about earlier. A written safety program. So having that documented, making sure it's distributed to all employees, updated regularly. They're signing and acknowledging that they've read it. Adequate claims handling by both you, the insured, and your insurance carrier. You want to make sure that your insurance carrier is handling the claims in a way that they're getting them taken care of and closed as quickly as possible, because the longer they're sitting out there with open reserves, the more that's going to impact your experience mod. And as far as how you can handle claims, timely reporting is the biggest thing. And it's always good to have regular communication with the adjuster as well to make sure that the claim is being attended to. Self-inspection and accident investigation program. After every claim, making sure that you're going back and figuring out, okay, what happened here? How did it happen? Why did it happen? And how can we prevent it from happening again? And then implementing a formal return to work program. I'm going to talk about that next. And I know we did a presentation on return to work for you guys a little while ago. So this may sound familiar, but return to work is very important in that if you have an employee that is injured and out of work, the goal is to get them back to work as quickly as possible, even if they can't return to their previous exact responsibilities. So the longer that they are out, the less likely they are to get back, the more likely they are to get comfortable sitting on the couch doing nothing, maybe even obtaining legal counsel, in which case that's when claims really start to blow up. So it helps the employee get back to their normal or modified job duties as quickly and as safely as possible. So it helps bring the cost of the claim down when you're no longer having to pay that lost time. So you get them back to work, because typically the lost time is only going to pay them 2/3 of their salary. So you get them back to work and they're earning their full paycheck. Even if they can't do their job, they're helping out in other ways. And they're going to be motivated in most cases to get back to doing their original job. So this benefits the company and the employee in a number of different ways. I'm just going to focus on a few of these. First of all, as I mentioned, it reduces the financial impact of the workplace injury and the cost of the claim. It's going to keep the injured employees productive and contributing to the company. It's going to help that employee maintain a productive mindset, as opposed to when they're sitting at home, perhaps watching TV, and just not being productive, not feeling productive. And then one of the other things is other employees, when they see you bringing an employee back to work, making an effort to get them back in and back involved with the day-to-day activities, other employees are going to see that, and they're going to see that you're committed to their well-being, and so it's going to enhance the overall culture within your business. So that's the end of the presentation, and again, here's my contact information. If at any point we can help with anything, if you'd like for us to provide a quote on your workers' compensation, you can talk to the folks at the IGO agency, and we'd be happy to look at that for you. And appreciate the opportunity. And Maddie, I don't know if there was time for questions, or if we'll just end right here.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. We do have some time for questions. If anybody has any, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourselves and ask away. I have looked on our Facebook page. I don't see any questions have come in yet. But yeah.
So, yeah, and I'm available if anybody would like to email me or call with questions. Happy to answer any of those.
Thanks, Nick. And I have your email address. So if I do receive any questions later on from people watching the recording, I'll feel free to forward them to you and make sure that they can get in contact with you.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nick.